Hello folks, Shanman here. You know, I've had a long history with biscuits. I can actually remember the first time I had biscuits with gravy. So I know biscuits, and these biscuits are the best I've ever made. We're going to start by putting 2 cups of all-purpose flour into a food processor. That's just so that we don't have to use that weird scary tool to mix up the butter. Add 2 teaspoons of sugar, and then go ahead and throw in 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 tablespoon of baking powder, not soda, powder. Pulse that just to get it all mixed together so it's all nice and good, and you can get a puff of flour in the air. Then we're going to add 1 stick of unsalted butter. Make sure it's super cold. Frozen is even fine too. We're going to pulse that till it gets nice and crumbly. You still want to see the butter, but you don't want it to be huge. You want it to be little pieces. Then we're going to pour 1 cup of cold milk on top of that. Don't use your hands yet. Just use a little spatula or something to mix it together. It's not going to form a complete ball, but get it as good as you can in the bowl. Let's work a little quickly just so that we don't let that butter melt. Once it's somewhat incorporated, then we're going to put it out onto a lightly floured table. Now remember, this is going to be super sticky because we want these things to be moist so that steam inside there happens when we're baking, and the steam from the butter is in there and it makes it rise. It's amazing. Now I find that you really want to fold this 10 times. I'm not to the folding point yet in this video, but yeah, see how you kind of flatten it out. It doesn't really matter if it's completely, we're not kneading bread, you know what I mean? You don't need a dough ball. We're wanting these to be flaky and light and airy. So once you get it flattened out to the point, kind of like this, then I use that pastry. I don't even know what that's called. It's like a little shovel. I sometimes use it to eat with too, but don't tell anyone that. But I use that and I fold it just so I'm touching it as little as I possibly can. Fold it about 10 times, and then it's time to cut the biscuit. Kind of get it to a workable rectangle that you think would work great. You can use a rolling pin. You can still just pat it out by hand. I just thought it'd be fancy and use a rolling pin, even though I'm not very good at it. And roll it out to a big old square. Now this is where you get to decide how thick you want your biscuits or how much rise you want out of them. I like mine to be fairly thick, so maybe I put it down there to just over a 1/4 inch. And I use a cup. That's what I find is best. I don't really have the right tool, I guess, but the cup works great, so I use it. And I cut out my biscuits. Usually I can get 8 biscuits out of this, and I think 8. Let me count. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh man, looks like Cookie Monster took a bite out of both of those. Cookie Monster got both of those. That's okay. They still taste like biscuits, and I don't care. My kids don't care. So just fix it if you can, or make it perfect depending on your personality. When you're down to the last bit here, this is what gets interesting. Because those other ones we folded so perfectly and they've got those 10 layers inside of there, this one's not going to have that. This one's just going to be like the one you eat while you're waiting for everyone to come to the table. This one's going to be the weird one, the oddball. But that's okay, it still eats the same and it's still going to be tasty. I'll show you what it looks like once we bake it. Put it onto a cookie sheet. You don't even have to have the silicone mat or parchment paper. Just throw it on there. You can leave them touching or not touching. I don't like them touching. I like them to rise all the way around. Coat them with some butter, or brush them with butter rather. Bake them at 425 degrees for 15 minutes. And see those ones in the back there, how they're kind of scary looking? Well, that's because they didn't get the 10 folds. And then that one Cookie Monster took a bite out of it. It's still kind of funny. These biscuits just came out and they were super duper hot. I do not recommend doing this. I had to really get new fingers after this. But they were excellent. Honestly, you're going to love them. Eat them all at one time. And subscribe!